What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, there are people around the world playing games that could literally destroy their lives? Games that have driven people to madness, caused unexplained deaths, and opened doorways to things that should never be disturbed. What you're about to see isn't fiction. Maybe this isn't the video for you. And if you do choose to stay, do not, and I cannot stress this enough, do not attempt any of these rituals, ever, under any circumstances. The legend says you can travel to a parallel dimension using just a 10-story elevator. Sounds simple, but the sequence is super specific and, according to those who have tried it, absolutely terrifying. But something about her is completely wrong. Her face, her movements, everything seems out of place. Some say they've seen strange lights in buildings, as if they were people. But when they get closer, everything is completely empty. And the words, yes, nitrogen monoxide, hello, and goodbye. The goal is to contact spirits using a pointer that supposedly moves by supernatural forces. But here's what most people don't know. According to paranormal experts, the Ouija doesn't discriminate what type of entities you contact. Rule number 1 is do not look at her directly and never speak to her. If she appears, simply press the first floor and pray. It works normally. These aren't creepy posters or urban legends made up for internet points. The elevator should take you to the 10th floor instead, and that's where things get really terrifying. People who claim to have reached this dimension say everything looks the same, but is completely empty. No people, no normal sounds. The air feels dense and cold, and there's a constant feeling that something is watching you. Go to the first floor and press the button for the 4th floor. Without getting out, press the 2nd floor, then the 6th, then the 2nd again, then the 10th, and finally the 5th floor. When the door opens on the 5th floor, here comes the part that gives me chills. Supposedly a mysterious woman can get on, but this time it should take you back to the 1st floor. But its concept comes from much older practices. What makes it especially dangerous isn't just the game itself, but how many people take it lightly. The problem is that some accounts mention people who never managed to return correctly and were trapped in that dimension until the elevator decided to let them back. These are real rituals, real games, with real consequences that have shattered real lives. And the most terrifying part, some of you watching this video right now are going to be tempted to try them, but here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. I am not here to encourage you to play these games. Then you've been warned. Let's descend into the 10 most dangerous paranormal games ever documented. Games that have quite literally destroyed lives, shattered minds, and left families asking questions that'll never be answered. I'm not here to give you instructions on how to contact the dead, summon demons, or open portals to other dimensions. What I'm about to show you is a warning, a glimpse into the darkest corners of human curiosity and the price some people have paid for crossing lines that should never be crossed. The games on this list have allegedly caused depression, psychosis, mysterious deaths, and in some cases, complete psychological breakdowns that required years of therapy to overcome. Police reports, medical records, and testimonies from families who have lost loved ones to these games. All of this exists, documented and real. So if you're under ATI, or if you have a history of mental health issues, or if you're someone who gets nightmares easily, because some doors, once opened, can never be closed again, still here, hit that like button if you're brave enough to make it to the end. Subscribe if you want more content that explores the darkest mysteries of our world. And remember, some knowledge comes with a price that's too high to pay. Let's begin. We start with a classic from South Korea that went viral worldwide. First, you have to be completely alone. The accounts say this woman is young, but if you've followed the sequence correctly and pressed the 1st floor, the most disturbing thing is that many people report their phones don't work there, as if they lost all signal or battery instantly. To return, you have to go back to the elevator and repeat exactly the same sequence. We couldn't make this list without mentioning the most famous paranormal game of all time. The Ouija board has existed since 1890. The board has all the letters of the alphabet, numbers 0 through 9.
And the words yes, no, hello, and goodbye. The goal is to contact spirits using a pointer that supposedly moves by supernatural forces. But here's what most people don't know. According to paranormal experts, the Ouija doesn't discriminate what type of entities you contact. The most chilling accounts come from sessions that started innocently. Picture this, a group of friends ask basic things like is anyone there, and the pointer starts moving. At first, the spirit seems friendly, even helpful. It answers questions, gives advice, even predicts things that turn out to be true. But then things change. The spirit starts giving very personal information about the players, things no one else could know. It starts making terrifying predictions, or worse yet, threats. Some accounts speak of entities claiming to call themselves by names of dead relatives, but when players dig deeper, they realize this entity knows things the real relative never knew, or says things that go completely against their personality. The most terrifying part is when you try to end the session and the pointer refuses to go to Gutpie. Players report that the pointer moves violently, spells out threats, or simply stays motionless no matter how much they try to move it. Some say that after these failed sessions, they started experiencing paranormal phenomena in their homes, objects moving, voices they hear at night, and the constant feeling of being watched. There are thousands of testimonies from people whose lives completely changed after a single Ouija session that went wrong. Sudden depression, constant nightmares, and in extreme cases, some claim they developed severe psychological problems that required professional treatment. This is one of the most specific and, frankly, most blasphemous rituals that exist. It can only be performed on two very specific dates, December 25 Christmas or Good Friday. The theory behind this is that on these days, when the birth and death of Jesus Christ are celebrated, the devil can have more power on earth due to divine absence. The preparation is very specific. You need to be in a completely dark room with a large mirror, 12 red candles placed in a circle around the mirror, and it must be exactly at 3 de la mañana, the devil's hour, which is a mockery of 3 de la tarde when Christ is said to have died. The ritual consists of turning off all lights, lighting the 12 candles, staring at yourself in the mirror and saying Dibbuk 12 times without looking away even once. According to accounts, if you do it correctly, you'll see the figure of the devil reflected in the mirror for 1 or 2 seconds. Now, here's what scares me most about this game: there aren't many people who know someone who has tried it, because apparently, those who do it never speak about it afterwards. The few second-hand accounts that exist say that people who have seen this apparition are completely traumatized. One account I found talks about a person who after performing this ritual started seeing shadows constantly, developed severe agoraphobia, and claimed they could feel a malevolent presence following them everywhere. What's most disturbing is that this person apparently never became religious again, as if they had completely lost faith after what they saw. Other accounts mention that some people who tried this game reported nightmares so vivid and terrifying that they developed chronic insomnia. Dreams where they were chased, tortured, or where they saw visions of hell so detailed that they woke up screaming. This comes from Jewish tradition and is considered one of the most dangerous rituals that exist. A Dibbuk is supposedly the tormented soul of a dead person who cannot find peace and seeks to possess the living. Dibbuk boxes are objects where these spirits are trapped, and opening them is literally inviting possession. The ritual to create a Dibbuk box is complex and requires specific elements: an old wooden box, black candles, kosher wine, an old coin, a lock of human hair, and it must be performed in a place where someone has died. The goal is to attract the tormented spirit and trap it in the box. But here's the trap: many people attempt this ritual without understanding they're creating something that can ruin their lives. Accounts speak of people who after performing this ritual started experiencing what can only be described as a curse. One particularly disturbing story speaks of a group of college students who attempted this ritual as a prank in an abandoned dormitory where supposedly a student had died decades earlier. According to the account, immediately after completing the ritual, one of the students started acting strangely. At first, he just seemed depressed and withdrawn. But gradually, his personality changed completely. He started speaking languages he had never learned, had knowledge about historical events he had never studied, and most terrifyingly, developed an extreme aversion to anything religious. His friends say his voice changed, that sometimes he spoke with an accent from another era, and that he developed abnormal physical strength. The student eventually had to be hospitalized, and according to the account, never fully recovered. His parents took him to several exorcists, and although he improved, he never became the same person again. This is technically a pagan ritual that was used as punishment for those who disobeyed religious laws of certain ancient cultures. Today it has become one of the most terrifying games that exist, and also one of the most dangerous because it involves literally inviting a malevolent entity into your home. The game requires specific materials: a white candle, a drop of your own blood, a piece of paper, several matches, a lighter, and salt. It must be exactly midnight when you start, not a minute before or after. First, you write your full name on the paper and put a drop of your own blood on top. Then you turn off all the lights in the house and go to the front door, which must be wooden. You place the paper in front of the door and put the lit candle on top. Here comes the part that gives me chills. You have to knock on the door exactly 22 times, and the last knock must be exactly at 12 de la noche. Then you open the door and blow out the candle. At that moment, you have invited the Midnight Man into your house. Now the real game begins. You have to find this entity inside your house before 3:33 de la mañana, using only the light of your candle. If the candle goes out, you have exactly 10 seconds to light it again. If you can't, you have to immediately create a circle of salt around yourself and not leave it under any circumstances. Accounts from people who have played this are absolutely terrifying. They speak of hearing footsteps that don't match their own, seeing shadows that move independently, feeling breath on their neck, and hearing whispers in languages they don't recognize. One particularly disturbing story speaks of someone who played this game and claimed to have found the Midnight Man standing in their bedroom. They described him as a tall figure, completely dressed in black, with a face they couldn't describe because their mind refused to process it. They say that when they saw him, they felt such deep terror that they fainted, and woke up exactly at 3:33 de la mañana in the same place. But the most terrifying part of their account is that they say since that night, they can feel when this entity is near. Sometimes they wake up at 3:33 de la mañana and know it's there, watching them. They have tried moving 3 times, but say the presence always finds them. This game comes from Mexican tradition and is considered one of the most dangerous invocation rituals that exist. It's based on the belief that there are 3 kings of the underworld who can be invoked to answer questions about the past, present, and future, but the price of obtaining these answers can be your sanity. The preparation is extremely specific. You need 3 chairs placed in a triangle in a completely dark room, a black candle, a red candle, a white candle, a small mirror, and it must be between 3 and 4 de la mañana on a new moon night. The ritual consists of sitting in the center of the triangle of chairs, lighting the 3 candles in a specific order: black, red, white, holding the mirror in front of you, and reciting an invocation in Latin that I won't repeat here. If you do it correctly, you'll supposedly see the 3 kings reflected in the mirror, and each one will answer a question. But here's the trap: the answers they give are always true, but also always terrifying. Accounts speak of people who have asked about their future and have seen their own death, or who have asked about their past and have discovered family secrets that destroyed their lives. One story that impacted me speaks of someone who asked when will I die, and saw in the mirror an exact date. This person became so obsessed with that date that they developed severe anxiety and depression. But most disturbing is that, according to the account, when that date arrived, they indeed had a serious accident, although they survived. But they say that since then they live with constant terror that the kings simply delayed their death and that they will still come for them. Other accounts speak of people who asked about deceased loved ones and saw things so disturbing about how they died or what happened to them after death, that they were completely traumatized. This game comes from Japan and is based on the real story of a young woman named Daruma who died tragically in a bathroom. According to legend, she slipped, hit her head, and died drowning. Her spirit, full of anger and confusion, now pursues those who dare invoke her. To play, you need a bathroom that you can completely fill with cold water, and it must be after midnight. You submerge yourself naked in the ice-cold water with the lights completely off, and without putting your head under the water, you have to repeat 3 times Daruma-san fell down, Daruma-san fell down, Daruma-san fell down. Here comes the part that terrifies me. While you're saying this, you can feel someone resting their cold, wet head on your shoulder. That's Daruma. You must not turn to look at her under any circumstances, and you must not stop repeating the phrase the 3 complete times, no matter what you feel. If you've done it correctly, you'll hear a loud knock on the bathroom door. That means you've successfully invoked Daruma. Now you have to exit the bathroom very slowly, because Daruma will try to make you slip so you hit your head like what happened to her. Once outside the bathroom, the real game begins. Daruma will follow you for exactly 24 hours. You'll feel her constantly behind you, you'll see her from the corner of your eye, and when you feel she's very close, you have to shout tomare, which means stop, in Japanese for her to temporarily go away. To end the game, you have to return exactly to the place where you invoked her, the bathroom, just at midnight the next day, feel her presence, and say kita to cut her off from the world of the living. But if you don't manage to end the game on time, Daruma will pursue you forever. The accounts about this game are especially disturbing because they come from Japan, where these topics are taken very seriously. There are stories of people who played Daruma-san and never managed to end the game correctly. These people report a life of constant paranoia, always feeling watched, having mysterious accidents especially in bathrooms, and developing an extreme phobia of water. One particularly terrifying story speaks of a university student who played Daruma-san as part of a courage competition among friends. According to the account, after invoking Daruma, he started feeling her presence constantly. At first, his friends thought he was exaggerating, but gradually they realized something really was wrong. The student developed extreme paranoia, especially around water. He couldn't shower without having panic attacks, completely avoided public bathrooms, and claimed he could see Daruma reflected in any water surface. His grades plummeted, he lost weight drastically because he avoided eating or drinking much to not have to use the bathroom, and eventually had to leave university. The most disturbing part of the account is that his parents took him to several Shinto shrines to have purification rituals performed, but none worked completely. Although he improved a little, he never completely freed himself from the feeling of being pursued. This game appeared in Russia during the Soviet era and is based on phone calls that supposedly could be made to the dead using specific numbers. The legend says that at certain hours of the night, you can call numbers that technically don't exist and contact deceased people. The ritual requires a landline phone. Cell phones supposedly don't work, and it must be exactly between 2 and 3 de la mañana. You have to dial your own phone number, but changing the last digit to a 1. If you hear the normal dial tone, hang up immediately and don't try again that night. But if you hear a strange signal, or worse yet, if someone answers, it means you've managed to connect with the other side. The accounts about this game are particularly disturbing because they're very consistent among different people from different countries. Those who have managed to connect report hearing voices that sound distorted, as if they came from very far away or through water. One story that deeply impacted me speaks of someone who played this game after their grandmother's death. When they dialed the modified number, they heard their grandmother's voice, but it sounded different, younger, but also extremely sad. The grandmother supposedly told them things about their family that no one else knew, but also warned them that they shouldn't be doing this and that there are things following her through the line. The person hung up immediately, but says that since that night, their phones started ringing at strange hours. When they answered, sometimes they heard heavy breathing, sometimes crying, and occasionally voices whispering their name. The most terrifying thing is that these calls came from their own phone number. Eventually they had to change their phone number and move, but they say that for months afterwards, any phone they used started behaving strangely. Phones would turn on by themselves, dial numbers on their own, and occasionally they would hear their grandmother's voice crying through the static. This is one of the most specific and dangerous rituals that exist, originating from Eastern Europe. According to legend, the Dryver man is an entity that exists between life and death, and can be invoked to obtain answers about people's destiny, but the price is extremely high. The ritual can only be performed in a forest, specifically in a clearing where no grass grows, which indicates something has died there. You need 7 black candles placed in a circle, an old mirror placed in the center, and it must be during a moonless night between 12 and 1 de la mañana. The invocation consists of walking around the circle of candles counterclockwise while reciting a specific phrase in a language that supposedly predates Latin. After 7 turns, you have to stand in front of the mirror and stare fixedly at your reflection while saying the name of the person about whose destiny you want to know. If the ritual works, your reflection in the mirror will be replaced by the image of the Dryver man, who will show you visions of that person's future. But these visions are always terrifying: death, suffering, loss, betrayal. It never shows positive things, and the visions are so vivid and detailed that they stay engraved in your mind forever. The accounts about this ritual are especially disturbing because the people who have done it claim that the visions they saw eventually came true. One story speaks of someone who used this ritual to know about their younger brother's future. They saw a vision of their brother dying in a specific car accident, the color of the car, the time of day, even the exact curve where it would occur. This person became obsessed with preventing this death, but no matter what they did, it seemed that destiny adjusted so that the vision would be fulfilled. Their brother avoided driving for months, but eventually had to do it for a family emergency, and indeed died exactly as shown in the vision. But the most terrifying part of the account is that after witnessing this death they had previously seen, the person started having more spontaneous visions about the death of other close people. It's as if the Dryver man had opened a window in their mind that they couldn't close, and now they were condemned to see the death of all their loved ones before it occurred. And we reach number 1, the most dangerous and disturbing ritual of all, the Red Door Ritual. This comes from a very ancient European occultist tradition and is considered one of the most powerful and destructive invocation rituals that exist. It's not a game, it's literally a ritual to open a permanent door between our world and what occultists call the void. The preparation of this ritual is extremely complex and requires elements that are difficult to obtain: blood from 7 different animals, soil from 7 different cemeteries, water from a blessed source, consecrated salt, 7 ancient mirrors, and it must be performed in a room that has been completely sealed from outside light for at least 30 days. The ritual must begin exactly at 3 de la mañana on the darkest night of the year, usually during the winter solstice, and takes exactly 3 hours and 33 minutos to complete. During this time, the practitioner must perform a series of invocations in various ancient languages, create specific circles with the materials, and finally, use their own blood to paint a red door on one of the walls. If the ritual is completed correctly, this red door supposedly becomes a permanent portal that allows entities from the void to enter our world. But here's the most terrifying thing: once this door is opened, it cannot be closed. The entities that cross through it are not ghosts or spirits, they are something much worse, something that doesn't belong to any known dimension. The few accounts that exist about people who have completed this ritual are absolutely terrifying. They speak of entities that have no fixed form, that can alter reality around them, and that seem to feed on psychological suffering and human sanity. One story I found in very ancient occultist texts speaks of a group of German occultists who performed this ritual in 1920. According to the account, after completing the ritual, the room where they performed it became what can only be described as an infection point of altered reality. People who entered that room reported seeing things that shouldn't exist, impossible geometries, colors that have no name, and entities that seem to be made of the very absence of light. But the most disturbing thing is that these visions began to spread beyond the room. The building's neighbors started reporting similar nightmares, objects that moved on their own, and a constant feeling that something invisible was watching them. Gradually, the entire neighborhood became uninhabitable. People developed inexplicable mental illnesses, animals completely avoided the area, and plants withered for no apparent reason. According to the account, authorities finally had to demolish the entire building and declare the area as uninhabitable for public health reasons. But even after demolition, the land continued to be problematic. New buildings were constructed, but they never lasted long. Residents always ended up moving after experiencing extreme paranormal phenomena. The most terrifying part of this story is that supposedly, the area continues to be problematic to this day. It's an empty lot in the center of a German city, and although authorities have tried to build there multiple times, no project has been successful. Construction workers report tools that disappear, machinery that breaks down for no reason, and an overwhelming feeling that something terrible will happen if they continue working there. Occultist texts warn that the red door ritual doesn't just affect the person who performs it, but can infect entire areas with paranormal phenomena that last decades or even centuries. This is why it's considered the most dangerous ritual that exists, because the consequences are not just personal, but can affect entire communities. And there you have it, the 10 most dangerous paranormal games you should never attempt. You want to be super clear about something: these are not real games. They are accounts, urban legends, stories that have been passed from person to person for years or even centuries. But the fact that they're just stories doesn't mean they're harmless. The power of the human mind is incredible, and if you really believe something is going to happen to you, your mind can create experiences that feel completely real. Additionally, playing with rituals that involve elements like blood, dark places, and altered mental states can be dangerous for completely practical reasons. If after watching this video you feel curious about the paranormal, there are much safer ways to explore these topics. Read books, watch documentaries, visit supposedly haunted places during the day with organized groups. Don't experiment alone with rituals you find on the internet. Which of these games seemed most terrifying to you? Do you know any other similar urban legend? Let me know in the comments, but please, just to share stories, not to plan to attempt any of these rituals. Hit like if you managed to stay until the end without pausing the video, subscribe if you want more horror and mystery content, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. See you in the next video, and remember, some doors are better left closed. Sleep well tonight, if you can.